Welcome to the Zachrilege cast, Sharona. Now, Sharona is probably the person I've known the longest to have on this show. Note that I didn't say oldest because I've had some fossils on this program. How are you doing, Sharona?
I'm doing a lot better, Zach. Thanks for having me. I was starting to feel left out because you kind of talked about me being on the show, but it never kind of came to pass. So I'm happy to be here.
You got to waiting by your phone. Now, I wanted to keep a tradition alive. Now I'm drinking, this is a cherry beer
Oh,
because
of
Sharona
course.
has a thing about me drinking fruity beers, as does Jeannie in the chat room. But we'll get to the good stuff. But this is the beginning. What do you have? What are you drinking on your side?
I am drinking citrus green tea because I quit drinking. That's part of the reason why I've been a little MIA. I've been sick, very sick, and so I had to quit drinking, and so I'm sort of supplementing. I'm helping my taste buds out a little bit with green teas because I didn't really. All I would drink would be like my coffee in the morning, and then I would drink water through the day, and in the evenings I would have something alcoholic, and so that kind of gave my taste buds a little bit of a break from sort of the blandness of water. So I've been using green teas, and I found some of this crystal light that you can put in water, and that's really kind of helped. So it's all right. Little
That's like
break.
that's like an entire closet in our house is water flavorings
Yeah,
because
Allison.
that's her rule
Yeah.
now. She has to alternate kind of eating and drinking, and she has to remind herself to drink. I don't have to remind myself to drink, which is nice. But the last time we talked, the Philadelphia Eagles won the Super Bowl because they were more Jesus-y than the New England Patriots, or they were the better team, or scored the most points.
or
Uh,
or the refs couldn't help the
yeah,
Patriots out
I
enough.
know. Yeah, I bring on Sharona because we did once do a show together. Originally, what was it originally called? It's
The
like
hate
trivia.
the haters show. Sharona and
It
the
was
haters.
called Sharona and the Hater. But as time went on, we agreed on going for two. Play on your show, The Extra Point, I think.
Yeah.
But now we'll call it on a hiatus.
Yeah, I mean, because you keep saying used to. I mean, either you need to make up your mind. Either it's over. Of course, I understand. I've been kind of gone, missing from the sports world, and I think you didn't, know what to do with that. And but I mean, I enjoyed talking sports still with you. But we'll figure it out, I suppose. But it is very much a grind doing a weekly show. And of course, when I was in sports and we were doing our show, I was doing a podcast 2 and 3 times a week. And, it was, yeah. You don't mind if I use my back scratcher, do you? Because my back is itchy.
At least you were nice enough not to say that it's a grind doing a show with me every week. I appreciate that.
I enjoyed doing the show, but I mean, it's easier for men because, I mean, you would come in sometimes sweaty, and I know, you didn't want to be all sweaty and everything, but, for women, I mean, we got to get all gussied up and shower and, put makeup on and try to be all pretty and as pretty as we can and all of that. And, that does kind of get old, but it's all good. It was fun.
It's probably your fault that I do the YouTube version just because that was the only way I knew to record a show. So that's the way it is, and the video is there, and occasionally the guest, doesn't want to be on camera, but for the most part, yeah, it is a bit unbalanced, and I'm sure we'll cover that a little bit on the show tonight. Now, have I ever thanked you for getting me into Dragon's Milk, which is my special beverage of the evening? This is what real beer looks like.
Not adequately enough, I don't think, but you're welcome. It's very good. It's a nice beer. I still have one or two in the fridge. I still have, God, My hair is going crazy. I chopped it all off a few months ago. It's grown back out quite a bit. I still have a big bottle of that Rogue chocolate stout. And I thought about, I was like, old times maybe, but I'm still trying. My body's still trying to recover from my last bout with illness. And so I was like, I really don't think that it's ready, for that. But maybe sometime, we'll sit down and have a beer together and chit chat about sports or something. So I'm doing the green tea thing
or something else.
or something. Yeah.
So what
I mean,
happened? I mean, was it that made you decide? Because you've kind of been like, maybe not. You're definitely not on the Zach Law drinking program. Usually, you would only drink on the show, and then occasionally you wouldn't drink on the show.
yeah.
I was just wondering what happened in real life to make you go, "Nah, I'm done with this."
Well, Zach is the only person to know about a really kind of terrible incident that happened to me several years ago, and because of that, I went through a period where I drank real heavily. I drank heavy stuff, and I drank real heavily, and was basically trying to drink myself to death, and I almost succeeded. And so I haven't done that in, I got past that and quit drinking so heavily, but the damage was done and my body just can't metabolize alcohol like it should. And I've been kind of having trouble with my gallbladder. And so the combination was just so severe that I just can't do it. The last time I tried, I ended up sick in bed for like a week. And so, it was either, Sharona, are you literally going to drink yourself to death or are you going to not? And I chose not to. So,
I agree with this choice, but you do feel better now.
yeah, a lot better, thanks. It was when you battle depression, depression lies to you and it tells you that things are not what they are. And so you have to really try and separate things and make sure that the decisions that you're making and the things that you're doing are correct. And I was just in denial about it. So, you know, um, once I finally figured out that that was, part of the reason why I was having such severe health problems, it sort of made the decision a little bit better. Yeah. So fun stuff. I
I know
know.
we have a nice light, easy show tonight.
Yeah. But I mean, that's the reality.
But one of the reasons we got along so well is not just because we're friends, because did a show, and because we like the same football team and we like the same beer eventually. Um, but it was that you also wrote a lot,
Yeah.
which I used to do more myself too. What happened there? But you've been on a bit of a writing hiatus, but it sounds like you're getting back. What makes you? Because it's really for me, it's hard sometimes. Well, this show I just ask questions, so it's really easy. But having to talk about myself and especially things I don't like about myself or things that are tough can be difficult. What made you decide to kind of get back into writing and to kind of talk about depression and what you've been going through in the past, I don't know, it sounds like a few years?
So yeah, so my depression goes back probably about 20 years. But at the time that it started, I didn't, again, depression lies to you. I was in such denial about the fact that, I had this disease, this thing. um, so yeah, I lived with it for a long, long, long time. And when you have it, there are times when it's not, it kind of goes into remission and it's not so bad. So you're able to tell yourself, oh, you're fine, things are okay. But with the Me Too movement, with women now more than ever, speaking up and speaking out about, the things that have happened to them, I kind of felt obligated because I have been very vocal about, you know, supporting victims and victims' rights, that, I should share my story. But it's really hard sometimes to talk. So, so when, when the Me Too off, I was like, okay, so, and I read a story. The reason why I was able to open up to Zach about what had happened to me was that I had read a story that another woman had written. And I was like, oh, what me? And I was like, it helped me so much to realize that my feelings and what I was going through was valid. So I was like, okay, I've got to do this because I've got to help I've got to help someone. I've got to help other people. But when I tried to do it, I just couldn't. My anxiety flared up so badly that I just couldn't do it. And it got so bad that I just couldn't write anymore. I couldn't. It was too hard. But now that I'm doing better and feeling better, I feel that obligation to share, what had happened to someone else.
Yeah, the connection's a little bit dodgy at the moment, but
Sorry.
I'm glad that it's on both sides. But I was just thinking, like, it's not just depression and talk about personal stuff. Like, you were a content machine for a while. Like, you were doing multiple podcasts, you were
Yeah.
writing, you were editing. And at a certain point, it's like, can you keep this momentum going? And I think you made the right choice for yourself, which is like, okay, how about me time?
Yeah, no, I think you give so much of yourself and, especially when you care about what you're doing. And I certainly, at the time I cared so much about sports and cared, so much about, you know, making things better, for, you know, not just for women, but for men too. I thought, when let me back up a little bit. So, when I first started doing sports, it really kind of was a labor of love, okay? And I loved doing it, and, a lot of it was fun. And then there became kind of a crossover between, my hair is driving me nuts. I've got this one little hair that keeps trying to stick itself in my eye. So then there became this crossover, right, with the Ray Rice incident. And, because I had some experience and I felt like I had some knowledge to share, it would be helpful to everyone, not just other women, but, maybe to help men understand a little bit better. I'm not sure that some men want to be informed. I've learned that a little bit the hard way. But yeah, you give so much of yourself that, and I did. I gave a lot to try to do that. I didn't really take care of myself nearly enough until, I was kind of forced to.
Well, I mean, we talk about sports in the recent time, and of course, you say Ray Rice, and that's a name that people know who don't even pay attention to football,
Yeah.
probably. But for you, why were sports so important for you as you were growing up and you were a bandwagon Dallas Cowboys fan?
I grew up in Texas. My early years were spent in Texas. Let me see if this doesn't help. my connection a little bit. And so that was something that she and I did together. And so it's kind of always a part of, part of my life. And then I always had like guy friends who were like, "Oh, you should do sport. You know way more than I do. You should do sports and stuff." And so, I started doing it a little bit, blogging a little bit, and then, because of what was going on, some of the things that I shared with Zach and I sort of touched on a little bit a few minutes ago, because of sports, as an outlet. From that, I hate to use the word escape, but it sort of was. I mean, that and drinking were kind of an escape from, some of the other things that were going on. So yeah, and it was fun for a while, and then it just became not so fun.
But was it the kind of news, the fact that real life, domestic abuse and issues like that are happening? Was it more personal? Was it kind of a combination of the two that made sports
No,
kind of take a back seat? Or at least, you weren't the fanatic that the term fan actually means anymore.
well, when I got into it and started writing about sports and whatever, I always just wanted to be an analyst. Stupid personality. I wanted to be an analyst. I thought, that I had an opinion that, might be valuable. And, at the time, I just didn't realize how much opposition there was to women having an opinion about sports. Um, but if I had it to do over again, I would certainly do some things differently. But I enjoyed that part. I enjoyed watching film. I enjoyed it. Um, so yeah, it it was. I don't want to say that it was a goal or anything like that, but it was certainly something that I aspired to.
Yeah, there was a lot of
I don't know if I answered your question.
there was a lot of backlash, like a female announcer for like an
Action
NFL
is so
game.
bad. What's that?
So there was such a backlash for there being like a female announcer of the game. It's like, well,
Oh, I
you
know.
can have the sideline woman, but she's got to be attractive to a certain level, and we don't want her to talk that much. We don't really
Yeah.
ask a lot of questions because it's almost like
I don't
set these
even
roles.
know why. I don't even know why they still do the sideline reporter thing at all. I mean, does anybody really enjoy that aspect of it? Annoyed about it? I mean, I don't know. Excuse me, I don't know what that adds to the broadcast, but women had certainly traditionally filled that role, and yes, they had to be a certain mold. That was not anything that I aspired to do.
Well, was it since I brought this up to you in our Twitter DMs? Did it Was it something that meant something to you that to hear that Allie Wagner did a lot of the broadcasts for the World Cup? I mean, she did. It seemed like they had 3 or 4 main teams, and she was one of them. And I was like, oh, that's cool. I mean, because that in major sports that just doesn't happen.
Yeah, no, I think you cut out a little bit, but I mean, women. I do know, even though I haven't been all tuned in, so to speak, to sports, I do know that there are more and more women, in the booth. Oh gosh, Beth. Ugh, I Her name is escaping me. I apologize to her for not remembering her last name. It's like it starts with an M. Um, and then you got the
Beth Mowens.
yes, thank you very much.
Gosh, yeah, I
Yes.
just looked it up and said she announced the that was the because in the National
Yeah.
Football League opening weekend they do a double header Monday night, which they only do once a year. And on the late night game that starts at like 10 o'clock my time, they let a woman do it. But that was, I think, it. And it was the first time in 30 years. I was like, wow, they did it 30 years ago? Huh.
Yeah, you know, I mean it's there there are a lot of strides being made, certainly. But there's definitely a lot of opposition, you know. I don't really want to share some of the experiences that I had because I've learned kind of the hard way that, when I would share things like that, I would do it hoping that it would be a learning experience. But, a lot of people take that personally, like it's an attack or whatever. And, I'm not in the business of having beef with anybody. I don't want, I'm at that point where, I want peace. I don't want to be out here beefing with anybody. I just want to have, some peace so that, I can continue to get well and, hopefully come back. I'm hoping that, someday that I will love sports as much as I used to. But I just don't. It doesn't have the same interest to me that it did. And there are a lot of reasons for that, not just what I went through personally, but, just the hypocrisy of the NFL got to me. It just, it was just vomit inducing. I was just so over, the blackballing of Colin Kaepernick, and I guess Eric Reed now. I mean, it got to be too much. And I was like, why am I putting, myself and my health through all of this for what? What am I getting out of this? What is this? What is the end game here for me? When, you know, um, I put so much effort into the things that I was doing and it didn't seem to be making much of an impact. And, the people that, yeah, anyway, that's all I should probably say about that.
Well, why do you think that people feel like entitled to have like sports as this safe space where they don't have to deal with like politics or real life issues, and it
No,
can,
they don't want to
it
deal
can
with
be like
opinion.
a
It's
percentage?
not. It's not that they don't want to deal with politics. They don't want to deal with opinions that are different from their own. I mean,
Hmm.
that's the bottom line. And that is an issue across America, across the world, really. But we'll talk about America. I sent Zach an article that was written by Kyle. I think Kyle Wagner at Deadspin. I RT'd it if you want to find it in my timeline. But it was talking about Gamergate, and it's the same thing. You know, Gamergate, what is called Gamergate is the future of the culture wars, and it was I think 2014, and it was right. And there is a segment. Kyle Wagner said a small segment. I'm not sure that I wonder how
It's vocal. It's
populous
not small. Yeah.
is, and it wields power in a way that is frightening. But I digress. This segment literally cannot stand to hear opinions that are different from their own, that are different from the status quo, that basically, white Caucasian males are in charge, should be in charge, should dictate what everyone else does. And that's the bottom line.
I want to do a mild digression, and then we're going to dive into this a little more. I like this because, like, I love it when my guest is like, "Hey, that question you have two questions down now." But first of all, why do we call everything gate? Like the
Oh,
Watergate was the name of a hotel.
yeah.
They did Deflategate with Tom Brady and the
Yeah.
footballs, and it's just deflate. I don't get the gate part.
I don't know what
I
it.
know they. I know it's. What was it? A Baldwin? It was like the Baldwin who like was on a show
Adam
I liked,
Baldwin.
but it
Yeah.
turned out to be like a total asshole. But that's okay as long as you're in Hollywood and you're the kind of asshole people like. You're cool, like James Woods, but we won't go there. Okay, so
See that
gamer,
he lost his agency. Anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry.
gamer, Gamergate, because you are and I'd say a very authentic gamer. That is something that is a hobby of yours, and even
Huge.
I would even say hobby because I don't know if I could compare it to like what fantasy football is to me because it's like it's more than that.
Yeah.
Were you kind of aware in that time frame of what was happening and what
Yeah.
was starting? Because we've been kind of cooking it for a while, and it was a small portion of the internet, but I feel like it's definitely taken mainstream.
I was very aware, and and I talked about it. Okay, it was very, it was a very legitimate, still is a very legitimate threat, and there were people in the industry who literally would not talk about it because of how serious of a threat it was. That's
Could
all
we
I'll
do
say.
a quick, like, since you're more in this than I am, like what kind of kicked it off? Because obviously it's
Yeah.
it's all about ethics and gaming journalism is what I hear. But what kind of got this started and what made it into a big cultural event?
Well, it to to go even beyond Gamergate, there is a back channel of internet website. I don't not all that familiar with the dark web, but um, there is a back channel of internet websites and forums and chat rooms that young men primarily visit, and they become indoctrinated into some really nefarious, it's really scary stuff. So, and that's where some of this, kind of um, was born and grew. There was a gaming. It's in that article. I'll try to remember the details as best I can. There was a gaming developer. Her name was Zoe Quinn, I believe, and a false story. I think she had a relationship. They broke up. This guy wrote a false story about her trading uh, sex for favorable coverage of a video game that she had done, which was not even true. The person that she was accused of trading favors with didn't even review her game. But truth has very little um, uh, importance to this segment of the populace, and it was far more about getting rid of this woman who expressed views that were very different from them, that they felt like challenged their frail little, and they basically, they doxed her. She got threats. Other women gamers who defended her got there was so I mean there were people that were afraid to defend her because of what these guys were doing, and so this whole movement grew around it. I wonder. This was, oh gosh, 8, 9, 10 years ago when all this was beginning. Wonder if we'd had the courage to speak up more then, if things would be different, but we didn't. The gaming industry left these women large. I mean, Brianna Wu, she had to move out of her house for a while. She got death threats. People were posting her, personal information. They threatened to rape both of them. It was bad stuff.
Wasn't it? Was it Anita Sarkeesian was also
She was
involved?
involved. Yeah, she was involved.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's a very popular secular convention coming up, and it's kind of turned into a everybody on that Gamergate side. But it all
Well,
came up by this desperate need to like listen to both sides.
I should say this. Gamergate carries different meaning to different people. I, I mean, I think that just like, excuse me, it's like anything that, like feminism or the Black Lives Matter movement, when you have a diverse group of people stretched out over a wide territory, um, it's hard. I mean, there's so many different people in there that a lot of ideas get thrown in under that umbrella that maybe aren't necessarily true to what the ultimate goals was. I can't speak so much to Gamergate, but we'll use feminism as an example, okay? Women who identify as feminists, it's not like, and I do, hello, it's not like we sit down and elect a leader, right? Nobody really sits. I mean, you have people who become prominent for, maybe the press chooses them. I mean, I certainly didn't choose um, what's her name? Amy Schumer or the girls writer, Lena
Oh, Dunham. Oh
I
yeah,
mean, listen,
lightning rod. Yeah.
they're not my leaders, okay? I mean, they may identify as feminists, they may have some feminist ideals. Ain't nobody sat down and elected them our fucking leader, okay? But I mean, the press certainly doesn't help creating these false dichotomies by saying feminist leader. She ain't my fucking leader.
Yeah,
Pardon my French.
there's a definite. Oh, you can curse on this show. Trust me. There's a definite push to kind of attack. I guess it'd be called straw manning, like and straw manning for feminism. Okay, straw womaning, where you attack like
I
the
don't care.
weakest version, or even like a
I'm
fake
not one of
version
them
of
feminists
somebody
that
else's argument.
you don't have to say. Oh, I don't have a problem with female or anything like that, but anyway, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to
It's
interrupt. Go ahead.
about time. Yeah. But I mean, there's an attack on like a bad argument, and then it becomes like, oh, this is what feminism is. Like Lena Dunham, I don't think
Yeah, I
how many
mean,
people. She's like 26 or something, and got a show on HBO.
yeah, but then you have people
But
who oppose.
everything she says, yeah, becomes magnified.
Yeah, but then you have people who oppose equality for women using her as an example. Oh, and it's like, listen, I mean, it's just all dumb.
That would be a good quote right there. It's just all dumb.
So,
But
hu-
let's talk about the
humans
good side of gaming,
Humans
okay?
are vastly overrated as creatures of reason and kindness and empathy. Anyway, yeah, I'm a huge gamer. Gaming is fun. I think we've talked about this a little bit on Going for Two. I am certainly not an expert in matters of anxiety and depression, except by living with it. And kind of why that's my next writing project. I want to write about my battle with depression and how I was in denial and how I kind of came to this realization, hopefully to help people understand. But I don't know why this is true. I just know that it is. Gaming is very soothing and helpful for people who struggle with anxiety and depression. Um, it is amazing how much it is helpful. And then, it can be fun.
Well, what do you have to say about this? So, Don, I hope Don's listening, and
Hi,
we need to bring
Don.
up Don's name because Don was like the one listener and watcher every week of Going for Two.
He was. And he
I
came
think
on
just
once,
because
twice.
he wanted to be mentioned, like if we could mention his name, pretty much we could just call it the Don Show. I think he would have liked that.
Yeah.
But Don, I had given him my Nintendo Wii, a couple of years ago, and I asked for it back. And I've been going through the back catalog. Is that something you do? Like you find a game that you may have not played in like 5 years
Oh, yeah.
and go from beginning to end. And in some cases, you don't. There's a game called The Blob, and the thing about the Wii games was you move the controllers. And in one of the first version of the game, every time you jumped, you had to move your arm, and that got kind of annoying. And I liked in the second game where you just had to hit buttons instead. So I like gave up that version. But is it like a nostalgia thing to go back
Oh,
and
sure.
play a game that you played 10 years ago and say, I'm going to take this down and go, this game's easy, and then go, whoa, wait a second, that's a little harder than I thought. I barely remember this part. No.
I'm trying to think. There are very few games. There are some very few games that I play that aren't part of a continuing series. And the games that I play the most are. The games that I play the most are the Mass Effect series, which I'm not sure Andromeda didn't do that well. I liked it. I still play it some. I don't know what they're going to do with that franchise, but and the Fable franchise, I didn't like that last game. I forget what it was called, but anyway, the Elder Scrolls series, and they just announced that they're coming out with a new solo standalone game. But they've got this online MMO game that I play that we've talked about, Zach, and then the Dragon Age game and Inquisition. I wrote. I've kind of tossed around the idea of maybe, writing. I've written about gaming before, maybe writing about that as part of, not as part of that one article that I've been working on in my brain. I think everybody has a different writing thing. I'd go by outlines, and so um, sometimes I'll let something gestate for a good, 2 or 3 months before I actually sit down to write about it. And sometimes it's just a quick, pop, 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 and there it is. This thing that I've been wanting to write about depression, I've spent a good while thinking about, trying to figure out. I don't want it to be too heavy. I mean, we were a little heavy at the beginning, and I'm sorry I got so emotional, but it's kind of an emotional thing for me. But, um, I want to keep that a little bit separate, but, maybe talk about how, in a different article, how gaming has really kind of helped me, through this process and, through the whole, getting better thing. So, but yeah, there is definitely a nostalgic aspect to it. And there's a game. The game that got me started in the Elder Scrolls series was a game called Morrowind. It was the original Morrowind. I think it came out 2000, 2002, somewhere. Maybe it was 2002. Um, they recently, like in the last 3 or 4 months, 5, 6 months, recently remastered it, re-released it on the Xbox One. You can play the actual game, put the disc in and play the actual game, and it is amazing. And I played it for a pretty good while. I haven't played it all the way through to the end, pretty close, but I will. I kind of bounce around a little bit when
Well,
I play.
I have like the Nintendo Classic, which is like the thing Nintendo came out with and didn't make enough of, and it has like 30 of the old games. It's not the old hockey game, which was one of my favorites. I still have that on the Wii. but there's something to be said to just play the old, like Dr. Mario is the one because it's kind of their version of Tetris, and it is something I'll do if I walk in place because I don't have to pay total attention to it, and it's fine. But it's yeah, it's something good. It's like there's this Goldilocks zone of a game. Like it has to be challenging enough, but you shouldn't die every 3 seconds.
I almost got, I don't know if I've even told you this. I almost got a Switch, which I don't understand. I have my original Nintendo. It's right, I'm looking at it right now. It's sitting right over there. I've been threatening to get it out and see if I can't get it hooked up and working again. I mean, I have my original Xbox. Um, but I gave some serious thought to getting a Switch, but I ended up getting a PlayStation 4 instead because I have a PlayStation 3 and I play those games and stuff. So, maybe someday we'll Nintendo together. Who knows?
Someday.
Someday. But yeah, I love the Mario games. You know, I didn't care much. I haven't played Mario Kart because I don't have a new system, and I didn't really enjoy Super Mario 2 all that much. But I enjoyed 1 and 3. I played the shit out of 3. I loved that game.
Yeah, those are two
Duck Hunt.
that are on there. I finished the first one, but not the third, and then I'm playing the Wii version, which is kind of just a slightly better technological version. But this is a key question for our friendship.
Oh.
How did I make you into a cat person?
Oh my God, you motherfucker. I have I have gone so about, I don't know, 5 years ago, I moved back home. My father was sick, and needed someone to help take care of him, and it was a good opportunity for me to get away and try and get better myself. So anyway, I moved back home. I've been taking care of my father, who's very sick, and we ad- originally we just adopted two little stray boy cats, and so I don't even know how. I know how that happened. They're just little shitheads who worm their way into your heart, and you just can't help it. So, not and at that time I had a dog. She was getting older. She was sick. I ended up having to put her down. But a mama cat brought her little baby. Just had a litter, and this little cat was the runt of the litter, and she was sick. She was very sick, so I nursed her back to health. And mama cat would come and check on her and see how she's doing and stuff. And so once little baby cat got better, I gave her back to put her back outside, gave her back to mama. Well, a few weeks later, she showed back up, and she was malnourished and sick again. And so I took her back in and nursed her, and she just never left. And so she's been, part of our family too. So, and now we just have cats, and it's like about 2 or 3 weeks ago. Yeah, because he just finished his. So I'm not all that familiar with cats. I mean, it was my Smokey, my little baby. You're not supposed to have a favorite, but I do, and it's Smokey. And so, Smokey one Friday was throwing up a lot, but he kind of does that. He gets, hairballs and stuff and kind of throws up. And I didn't really think that much of it, but by that night, you could tell something was wrong. He was in pain. He was not eating. And I was worried to death. I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't sleep hardly any that night. So the next morning, I was like, I'm going to take him to the vet. So the next morning, he was not better. So I took him to the vet, called the vet, and took him to the vet. And it's so weird because it's very nice. We're in the office, and, we're chit chatting, and, she's like, what's going on with Smokey? And so she's examining him, and we're talking, and she feels his belly, and she's like, oh, his bladder's very, very, I don't even distended or whatever. I don't remember what she was like. all business and like leaving the room. She said, "Oh, he has a blocked bladder," and she was like, she just left the room immediately, and it was all business. And I was like, "Where's my phone?" I'm googling blocked bladder and stuff, and so he was very sick. And if I hadn't taken him that morning, he would have died. So she had to keep him. They had to keep him for like 5 days, and he had to take medicine, but he's fine now. He's doing all right. And then he came home with a cold. I told Zach, he gave me he tried to give it to me and Bandit both. I don't know if you can get colds from cats, but we both definitely had it. So, and it was funny because I had to take him, when I went to pick him up, her assistant, we were talking, he was like, "So this is the antibiotic, and this is, this is something, a muscle relaxer, and this is Valium." And I was like, "Hey, listen, man, you should be giving me the Valium because this has been stressful." So he was on some good medicine, but yeah, it was something else.
So, what are the names of all your cats?
So we have Smokey and Bandit are the two little boys. Well, two boys. They're not so little anymore. They were all in here a little bit earlier. I sent them out. And then the littlest one, the little baby, she's not a baby anymore, but she's so tiny, especially compared to them. Her name is Iggy.
Excellent. Well, the Zachrilege cast portion of the show will be over shortly, but we will continue with some Going for Two talk. But I forgot to ask you this in advance, so I will not totally put you on the spot. Do you have a joke to share with the audience?
Do I have a joke?
Yeah.
No. Oh,
Nah.
yes, I do. Yes, I do.
Wow. Came in, the insight.
So, the news today is that Fox Sports is in negotiations to hire Jeff Fisher as a commentator, which, as we know, he would probably only be able to make 7 out of the, 16 games and not make the playoffs. So, hey, boom, boom. I can't take credit for that. It was in the comments to that, but I screamed with laughter. I thought it was hilarious.
Yeah, we'll have to do some more Jeff Fisher material pretty soon. So I have a joke, and I will do it now. What would Superman be called if he were a thief?
I don't know.
The Man of Steel.
Oh my God.
Come on, no? All right. Well, thank you for being on the Zachrilege cast portion.
Thanks for having me.
We're going to continue talking about Going for Two, but I'm going to break this up into two parts just for the audio people. But let's go ahead and keep going for the people who are actually in the chat room. Weird. So Going for Two. So I'll do this. This is nostalgia.
Promise not to be too bad. Oh, no.
Good evening and welcome to Going for Two. This is the only YouTube podcast in human history to feature me and Sharona drinking our way through the important topics of the day, even if it's just me drinking beer, as long as they touch the football world and not in that way. Hi. So,
hi.
The first episode of the show was April 2nd, 2014. And we already discussed the fact that it was called Sharona and the Hater.
Yeah.
And what I like is over a period of 4 years, the Hater kind of changed. Like when we first started doing the show, Going for Two was a show that was pretty much 100% about the Tennessee Titans for probably 3 years.
Pretty much.
And initially, Sharona was pro-Titans and I was kind of meh. And then, over time, we kind of, I don't know if we switched. I think
let's just be honest. Sharona was fucking pissed that they hired Ken Wisenhunt, who she didn't think was a very good coach, and tried to tell everybody. And hey, who was right?
You miss Mike Munchak, don't you? We can go for full sports ball now. So
okay, yeah, okay.
We're basically every feud that we've had in the past 4 years, we're gonna try to cover in a short period of time. It might not be a short period of time. We'll see how it goes.
I'm all about it.
There is no time.
We argued in DMs today about the supplemental draft. Didn't you miss arguing with me?
Oh, the good old days. we don't. It's kind of refreshing to just have a disagreement with someone where someone you actually are still friends and don't want to hate the other person after it's
I
over.
know.
That's a nice throwback. I think that's one thing that sports still kind of does well
Sorta.
is like if you're doing a fantasy football draft, you can actually disagree about the value of players and go, okay, we'll see, because truly we will see, and it's going to be a while. But I have to ask this, and this is a question. I'm probably have to duck because you're going to throw something at me. I don't remember when we first like met in person. I don't know if it was like at a Titans tailgate or if we met through Twitter. But
I don't remember either. I think we met on Twitter.
because it was like I had kind of gotten to know some of the members of a Titans blog that we don't have to mention by name if you don't want to. And that might have been how we met in person. That's definitely how we decided to do a show. Because
Could
there already
be.
was one Titan show. Why does it need to be two, right?
Yeah. I don't mind talking about it. I mean,
Forgot about Jamalisms. That was one of my many
yeah,
people. We'll get to some of our favorite and just general guests we've had on the going for two as well later.
I've never been the kind of person that wants to hold grudges, that walks around, you know. I might not forget some of the bullshit you pull on me, but I do my best to try to,
Me in particular, my shit.
yeah,
I'll do anything. Come on.
to try and forgive it because it's such a burden to carry that stuff around with you. Yeah, I mean, I can disagree with people and not think anything about it, but I've learned the hard way that not everybody's like that.
Yeah, it's because I don't know. It was like early on in the fantasy football community, it was all love, and early on
Yeah,
doing Zachrilege cast, Avios community was all kind of love, and that's not the case anymore. You
no,
definitely find people, although really, I don't know if I can say this universally, but like generally speaking, I get a people are definitely maybe it's because it's a relatively small community. The fantasy football community usually helps each other out, but you weren't. It wasn't really fantasy football. It was like a Titan site, and yeah, I don't know. It definitely got dark.
yeah,
And I lost track of. I mean, I still follow like the site in general, but I don't really follow any of the personalities anymore because I was never really that close. Like you actually wrote for the site. You knew these people more or less.
well, I thought I did.
Yeah, well,
I
true.
thought I did. I thought I was cool with, with, I try to be, cool, as cool as possible with people. But yeah, I don't know. They, yeah, I don't know. One of them, after I quit writing for that site, I was doing a Yahoo Sports radio show and writing for some other people, and I guess I had made one of them mad. I don't even know how. But he kept coming in our mentions talking about how shitty our show was, and just really. And then it was at a time when I was still kind of reeling from this bad thing that I had told you about. This was, I think, before you and I met, Zach, and it was very hurtful. Really kind of contributed to, well, I'll just go ahead and say it. So I had a breakdown, um, and that was kind of during that time period when I was drinking heavily, and I kind of recovered from it, but yeah, it was weird. To this day, I don't know why those guys had such hatred toward me, but they sure did. Anyway, I wish them well. I hope they're doing well, you know.
I wouldn't wish them
Um,
well, but I never. Yeah, I was at the point where they were like, "Hey, I want to write about the draft," and then I was like, and then that was kind of it. And I'm kind of glad that was it. But that, yeah, you definitely learn about the business and interpersonal stuff when you get involved in this. And it's such a downer. And we've been talking about downer stuff, but let's talk about up. Let's get excited here.
sorry. I
What
mean,
on
sorry.
earth made you think this guy? I should do a show with him, and we should talk about the Titans, and we should do a YouTube show because you were the one who had been, at least you were involved. I had
Yeah.
never done this before.
At the time, I was doing a show for NGSC Sports called The Extra Point, and it was a YouTube show, and I think I was doing. Gosh, I don't even remember the name of the show. I was doing a show with with some other women at NFL Female. Holy cow, I can't remember the name of that show.
Was it the Titans version? Did we
No, this
have
was
ones for every team?
no, this was just oh my God. See, I've just been gone too long. What was that? Anyway, let me look at my YouTube channel. I'll be
I was
able to
like, can
tell
you
you.
remember all of your shows? That's the
Ah,
downside. Is I was trying to like go and manually count like how many episodes did we do, and I was like, no, we
we
never
had
we
well,
never numbered them.
we had a
So
couple of different names. It started out as Cover 3, and then we changed it to oh my God. Anyway, we did it on Tuesday night. So anyway, so I was doing a couple of other, and I guess you and I just tossed that idea around, and um, you know, we said let's see how this goes, and we had a long run. We we had a lot of good guests on. We had a long run. We had a lot of fun. I thought.
I thought I was like out of well, I can't, I don't go back and look at the individual episodes, but I was like out of I doubt we went more than 2 weeks between episodes during
Yeah.
that time period because I'm pretty sure it was like post Super Bowl was the last
At
one.
one time, I had a count. I think it was in the 300s.
Can't imagine. I mean, I'm just thinking like weekly. It's like 50-ish a year. We did 4 years. We might have done 200. I don't know.
Okay.
It was between
Maybe it was
that
200.
and Know Your Enemy and the Ask Your Fantasy Football Expert series, which that one didn't get an exit interview. That one just died. I just stopped doing
Mm.
it. I never thought about doing it again. So, how
Mhm.
did you feel? And be honest, when I said, "Hey, let's meet at a Tennessee Titans football game," and then my phone died as soon as I got to the game.
um, yeah, I mean, it was kind of weird, but I didn't really think that much of it. I mean, I like to give you a hard time about it, right? A lot of things I like to give you a hard time about it, but no, I mean, shit like that happens. I didn't think that much of it.
It was weird.
I didn't think you were avoiding me or anything. I just, thought it was.
It's weird to think back in the day where I didn't pay attention, like super to my phone charge status. Like now, I'm like, there's no way I'm going to a football game without like 90% charge at least, because they do have Wi-Fi at the NFL games, although it's not very good Wi-Fi. At least it's
Well, at
better
the
than nothing.
time, I don't think at the time the Titans had Wi-Fi.
No, they only got it like a couple years ago, but
Yeah.
I remember going to. It might have been like a season finale when they were playing the Texans, and the Texans had already clinched the division. And I met you, and I had already bought my two 22-ounce fat tires, and I was like double fisting in the first quarter. So that
Was
was
I
funny.
drinking the pink drink? Wasn't I
It was
drinking the?
possible. I do
Yeah.
remember you talking about going to a game where it froze because it was so cold.
That was the Pittsburgh game. I'll never forget it. That
Was
might have
that the
been.
playoff game?
No, it was not it was
Because they like beat them
Sunday
to
night
win
or
the
Monday night
division.
game.
Oh, there was a Monday night game. It was so cold that my
I mean,
cousin bought winter
drink,
clothes for his kids, and we left at halftime. Yeah.
my drink froze in my plastic glass. It was that cold. Until you and I went with Josh, I think. That was the last game that I had been to. I didn't the
Didn't you have season tickets for a while, or?
There for a long time. I went to every game. I mean, I went to a lot of the away games. That Pittsburgh game, it was cold. It was everything about the game was. I mean, I'm not talking about the on the field product. I'm talking about just the experience. The game experience was crap. I didn't enjoy any of it, and I was like,
Well,
what they were showing on the screen sucked.
I
The
think
music
early.
sucked. Everything sucked. I was like, you know what? I'm just not coming back.
I mean, early on, when the Titans moved to Nashville, the first year they were there, it was such a weird, like, no other NFL team's been through this. Maybe the Raiders are going to go through this,
Yeah.
but they decided to move from Houston, and then they played in Memphis for a year. They played at Vanderbilt, which is a college stadium, for a year, and then they moved to their own stadium, and they had just this great year. And it was the first time they made the playoffs for a while. And they had the Music
1999.
City Miracle, which I didn't go to because my cousin was getting married that day, and I was hungover, and I barely watched. I only saw the very end, which, by the way, on replay, that game was terrible until the end. And that was an example of Jeff Fisher. Really should have. They could have gotten rid of Jeff Fisher like 5 years earlier if they had lost that playoff game. By the way, just saying, we could have done without that Kevin Dyson play. And I'm still mad that the team gave their season ticket holders, they give a bobblehead of a player every year, and it was Kevin Dyson. I'm like, God, the teams were bad if he was one of the guys you give a bobblehead for. Anyway, I'm rambling. It's fun.
Did I answer your question?
I don't remember. But what was it like to do? I mean, did you ever care? Like, for a while, I was like, hey, how come more people aren't listening to this show? And then I was like, yeah, but I get to talk to Sharona for an hour a week, and it's fun, and we talk about sports, and I don't get to talk about sports that much. And occasionally we had guests, and that was cool, but it was just like, let's have fun for an hour and not worry about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean it was fun, sure.
Are you sure it was fun?
Yeah.
Do you have favorite, least favorite moments of the show?
Oh
Do you have things that
gosh.
come up? I know we had a few
Um,
episodes. Let me give you a prompt. Me leaving the auction last year.
I will never ever forgive you for that.
Uh,
That was
so
awful.
let's catch people up. So there's
So,
this for the non-football people. There's this thing called fantasy football, and for the fantasy football people, we decided to do. We've done this, I think, 3 years. An auction.
yeah,
And fantasy football auction has got to be one of the most tedious versions of picking a team,
it's awful.
because when you do a fantasy football draft, you know you're picking like 8th in a round. So you're ready when your pick comes up, but when your pick isn't up, you don't really pay attention. When you do an auction, every single player pops up and you have to bid, not bid. And the first year took like 3.5 hours. And after like 3 hours, I had way too much beer.
Zach was
And I
drunk.
was done. And I
I
knew
was
I had
drunk,
to.
but
I
I
knew, I
stayed
knew
the
I
whole
had to
time.
I knew I had like 6 players on my roster who are going to be totally random and like the worst guys. And I just walked off. I didn't say bye. I just went to bed because my bed is right across the hall.
I know. I was like,
My
"What's
wife's like,
that?"
what's going on? And I'm like, I'm just tired. And I
I think it
left.
was Michael Stepney who hung out
And
with
my
us.
team was the
Michael and
worst
Richie and
team in the league. So,
yeah.
yeah.
I was drinking brandy, and that was
Oh, God. See, that's
might
the
have been
thing.
might have been the last
Remember
time
when
I drank brandy.
you're one of those weird people that I don't understand. You'd have like 2 beers in the house, and once you're out of beer, you would, drink whatever that you had, and it would be brandy one year. I can't even like imagine
I
how.
went on a rant about the
Mhm.
Titans and their defense, and as it turned out, I was right.
And you made some bets, and that was
I
fun.
made some bets I was not right about, I don't think. Hi, Lisa. Hi, Katie.
But I don't know, there's something to be said because YouTube, there are a lot of like 3 hour videos out there, but for us, we would only do an hour, but that would be 3.5 hours, and you can't keep recapping players who were picked after a while. You're just like, I don't care anymore. just
That's a little much. I
That's
mean,
why I like the draft we did.
uh,
The draft, I was preparing for it to be like 2 hours, and we were done in like an hour and 20 minutes.
yeah.
And what my favorite part is Don, of course. Don won the league, and I actually did like a Facebook video before to give Don the trophy. And then when the actual draft happened, I was talking, but Don was sitting like 3 feet away from me, but he was in his own zone. He was not going to talk. He was not going to interact. He was trying to concentrate because Don gets a little crazy when it comes to drafting, as we know. And I don't know. I definitely want to do the league this year. I was thinking maybe we could all meet in a place, but I don't think that's going to happen. We'll probably have to do it online. But
Yeah.
maybe some of us can meet in person because Don has to give the trophy to Chuck, and Don and Chuck have a history, you know.
I did not know for the longest, but now I do. You finally shared that, and I forget when, but it was on one of the
They
last
were,
shows we did.
yeah, they're not as close, but they're gonna be close for for a day. We'll see if we can do it. I would like to do it in person because
I think I would like to be
there
there
was
in
a
person.
there was a fantasy league
Goodness.
that I was in with Don and Chuck, and my dad was in it. And then one year, Chuck, my dad, and Don just said we don't want to be in it anymore. And I was like, oh, okay. So I left too, and then it was like, oh, what do we do now? Oh, let's start a new league. And have you noticed in 2 years of this league, first year Don wins, second year Chuck and I in the championship? I'm just saying, top of the league, baby. Poor Sharona had a bad week that first year because you had the number one team and then you had a bad first week of the playoffs.
Oh my God, yes. I had the best team in the league, and then but it was, I mean, it certainly wasn't just me. It was that one year where, a lot of good teams. It was just a crappy week for a lot of people. It happens. Jennifer Eakins, she beat me. Hi Jen, it's all right.
It's all right. So you have, so I'm going to try to list some of the guests we've had in the past. Feel free to add some of your own.
Okay.
Like Jamal, who I almost forgot, I threw him in there. Mike Margosian, who I've been happy to hear. He's been drinking his stouts in the summer. I'm a
Love
stout
Mike.
and summer guy. And he set up our auction league. And he was actually setting up auction leagues where he would get like a part of the cut. And with us, he just did it. And he actually stayed for the entire draft, unlike some people. And of course, we have the Cabo Cove and Lisa London. We have Jen Ryan,
Yep.
Don, of course.
And of course,
Sharona's
Katie.
favorite.
Wasn't Katie on the show a couple of
Katie was
times?
on. Jennifer, you mentioned her, the Monday mommy. We had Sigmund Bloom on a
Jody.
couple of times, which
Yeah.
is Matt
Sig-
Wallman, who lives like 20 minutes from me, and I really should meet up with him now that he's not doing RSP. Mike Waller's been on a couple times, 4for4. Bob Lung,
Bob.
Jody Smith,
Jody Smith.
Bob
Scott.
Harris. He's one of the just
Scott's
amazing.
been on a few times. Scott
Fish.
Fish. Yeah.
Yeah, this is Scott's week. Keith Myers, Ed Katie, we mentioned before, and don't know anybody else. Yeah, I was gonna ask. So, do you have a second favorite guest after Dawn?
I love all of our guests. Of course, it's always fun having Lisa and Katie on because, we like to give each other a hard time. Jody's always a pleasure because I love hearing Jody's been doing this for so long. And isn't he the one that has the notebooks that I want? I want his
Yeah, he
notebook.
started doing a show, and he was talking about that because he's the handwritten like
I want to see his
fantasy
notebook.
football before the internet, where people like manually sent in scores every week. Like that's something I definitely missed.
Yeah, Keith was fun. Mike Wallert and his love for the Browns, and Yeah, it's a
Oh yeah,
good group.
the time I tried to call in when I was driving from a work event and my audio was so bad.
Was that Mike? I think it was
Yeah,
Mike. Mike, I'm
you guys.
sorry.
Yeah, you guys were like, "We're just gonna do this." I'm like, "Good idea," but we have to do this. This might be the last time. We'll see. One more time for the
Oh
crowd.
no.
Over it or nah? You might
Okay.
have to
Sure.
would have to do this one more time.
Yeah.
So hashtag over it or hashtag nah. Paying attention to sports again.
I don't know. I'm back. I'm doing the Scott Fish thing, which thanks Scott for letting me in. Back on social media. I gave up all forms of social media. It was being very detrimental to my health too, and so kind of being away was good. So I've been doing the SFB draft and back on social media, kind of as a test to see, how I would do. And, so far, so good. So we'll see. I'm going to leave that open.
Okay, that's an acceptable answer. Over it or nah, igniting the fire.
So when you said you don't know this because you don't play video games nearly as much as I do. You don't play the games that I do.
No.
So the funny thing about that, and the reason why it was so funny to me, is that I had just created a new character, which is a dragon knight, which has an ignite fire talent skill. So it was kind of, yeah, hell yeah, let's ignite the fire. And she's awesome. So anyway, yeah, no, I'm not. I will never be over igniting the fire. But we didn't start the fire.
No, Billy
Hat
Joel.
tip to Billy Joel.
Well, I think I know the answer to this one. Over it or nah, beer.
I don't know. I mean,
Over it.
I guess I'm over it.
I'm over it for tonight.
Yeah, I'm not gonna drink for a good while. Let my body really, hopefully, try to recover. At some point, I'll probably finish what I do have, but it'll be a good while before I try that again.
Well, I've told you before, and I'll say it again. I have tickets for the Titans Eagles and Titans
Okay.
Patriots, and there is an
I
extra
don't.
ticket
Well,
waiting.
they're both pretty obnoxious fan bases.
I don't remember like I remember going to it was Titans Patriots like opening day a few years ago, and I knew they were going to beat the crap out of the Titans, and they did. I feel like they have a shot, but we'll see. And the Eagles, it's really hard to say here after the Super Bowl. Carson
Super,
Wentz tore his ACL like in December, and people were drafting him like as the fourth quarterback. Like, okay, guys, have fun with that.
Super Bowl
I'm surprised
curse.
you didn't do that, but you couldn't because you love Marcus. Marcus, baby.
Well, here was the thing. I don't think I can't remember if Wentz was out there. Luck was out there. I have no idea why Andrew Luck's ADP is so high. But anyway, I was absolutely not going to draft Andrew Luck. I think Wentz was out there. Who else was out? Oh, Drew Brees. I gave really,
Jesus.
I gave really serious thought.
Parentheses, Breezes.
Gave really serious thought to drafting Breezes, who our politics does not mesh. But as a player, I adore him, and he's so great and everything. But I really feel like Old Man Time's going to get him this year. I think that I was scared to draft him. So, you know, I don't think that you can reach in Scott Fishbowl because it's such a deep league, and you better go get what you can while you can. So I went ahead and drafted Marcus Mariota,
Well,
who I feel, who
We'll
I
talk
really
SFB in a minute.
okay. You haven't hated on a single pick of mine. I don't even know you. What's that?
Over it or nah, I'm going for 2 redraft.
No, I'm not over it. Unless we should do one.
Over it or nah, going for 2 auction.
No, I don't want to do an auction.
You're done with auctions?
They're just not that fun to me.
Well, the best ball, like I like the concept of the best ball in fantasy because you just draft players and then your best players are picked
But
because
that's why it's not
it's so
fun.
hard to make picks, or I guess it depends on, it's so hard out of context. It's so hard to make weekly picks, but at the same time, if you're not engaged in your team, then it doesn't seem to matter. But we'll do over it or not. Scott Fish Bowl is, how many years have you done the Scott Fish Bowl?
4, I think.
And let's explain the Scott Fish
I
Bowl
think.
is a fantasy football league, but it has like, I'd say many of the main well-known names in the industry, and I don't even know how many people are in it this year. Is it like 840? It's crazy. But he names the divisions like he has a theme to it, and this year I think it was comedy. And the name of my division is a character from a show called Better Off Ted that I've never heard of. So it's kind of weird.
Animated. It's animated.
Because last year it was like Disney, and I was in the Tinkerbell division, which I thought was great because I was in it with Sharona, and I was in it. Lisa was in it, I think, as well.
I think I've got my Tinkerbell up here. I do.
And this year I'm in a league, and I know a few of the people, but what I like about this is the scoring is different than most leagues. You know, it's point per first down as opposed to point per catch, although I think point per catch is there. And you only have 4 positions, and it's super flex, so you can take, you should take 2 quarterbacks. And it's 4 positions, and they're all pretty evenly valued. And there are many ways to skin that proverbial cat when it comes to making your picks. Because I've had plans. I know like 2 years ago, I drafted a ton of like tight ends early, and I actually had a really good team. I just forgot to start Travis Kelce on a Thursday night, and that screwed me in playoff week. And last year, I had a good draft.
What was that name? Who was the Tampa Bay running back? We haven't even talked about that.
Oh, what was his name? Yeah, the guy I told you to trade a dynasty pick for.
So glad that Dynasty League folded because that was.
I saw he was like that running back was on. I think
He
was like
fumbled like 3 times in the first 5 minutes, and I literally wanted to jump to the computer and choke
I
that.
remember starting that guy, and I can't remember his name because like he actually had a decent game because in the last drive of the game he caught like 6 passes for like 15 yards, and it saved his day. But yeah, I remember like, don't take advice from me when it comes to pretty much anything, but definitely when it comes to fantasy football. But I think that's something that definitely unites people is I can remember like the dumb picks I've made in fantasy leagues for like the last decade. And I can remember the time the guy drafted David Boston in our fantasy league.
Oh,
and he injured himself the week before, and we all went. Or the one time the guy took Adrian Peterson, but he took the Adrian Peterson from the Bears. We had to decide whether to let him take the. It was a tough day when they had 2 guys with the same name. Then we ended up giving him to him, but
my first time playing fantasy football. What was that? I was a noob. It was an Atlanta Falcons running back. He had TJ Duckett.
That's our Chucky was calling for years, TJ Fuck It, just because he was not. He had 1 year where he get like 8 touchdowns, but he was not very good. That was, I think, that's
well. See, I didn't know.
That was in the Vic era.
I was like, he's got a lot of.
I'm gonna go look up the Tampa Bay Bucks.
I mean, I watch sports, but it was mostly centric to the teams that I liked, and so I just looked at the guys who were good the year before, and I was but I actually had but I mean, I made the playoffs. I almost went all the way, so I kind of made up for my. But I had the misfortune to do that, but the great fortune to get a steal in Curtis Martin, who was, I think, coming off a bad injury, and everybody was afraid of him. And I ended up drafting him, and he had that great year. I mean, he had, and I took Vince Young. This must have been 2006, maybe. Took
Wow, baby.
took Vince with my very last pick. Jake Delhomme was my
Still like
quarterback.
Jake Locker.
Yeah, I mean, I got lucky in a lot of respects. So anyway, made a playoff
I just remember
run.
the year I drafted Santana Moss, the year that Randy Moss had that crazy year, and I passed on him. Yeah. Or the year when Peyton was coming back from his injury and he had like 50 touchdowns, and Robert Griffin were both on the board, and I took Jay Cutler.
Oh
by
my
the way,
God!
Jay Cutler.
Hey, I don't want to work Cutler.
Jay Cutler is now like a reality TV star. Like his wife has a show, and he's the star of it. Let's see. No, I have to go back a year. I was looking at Tampa Bay running backs, and 2016 was too soon. I'll know him as soon as I see the name. I know this guy.
I'll know it too. I don't remember it now
Jake.
though.
I still have my Jake Locker though, and I also have the Pac-Man. Thank you for sharing the Pac-Man video.
How
It was
big of
Bobby
a
Rainey. Bobby Rainey.
Bobby Rainey?
Bobby Rainey, y'all.
Like though, seriously, how big of a dumbass are you to pick a fight with Pac-Man Jones? I mean,
That's what I said
he
to
deserved an ass whooping
Alvin.
for being a
like,
stupid head.
I was like, how come Pac-Man always seems to get into these issues? Like, is it because he just has bad luck, or just people see a guy as like an NFL player, but he's short and think they can take him? That was really weird, because I think he's finally like done. I have the Pac-Man jersey still that my mom sewed the Pac-Man on it, and he never played a game for the Titans after that, which was great. My Titans jersey history is bad. That's why I'm probably never going to buy another one, just because I had the Vince Young, the Jake Locker. Well, I had a white check, that red one that they had that one year, and I wish I kept that.
So why do you think DeMarco Murray's still unsigned?
I guess he wants more money, or he wants to be in a good situation, because I heard about him going to Seattle. I had him as a rookie in a dynasty league, and I finally got rid of him. My dad picked him up, and I wish I had traded him the first years with the Titans, because running backs in dynasty, they do not last long. Speaking of Bobby Rainey, his value didn't even last a quarter.
Are you shocked? Are you shocked I didn't draft Derrick Henry or Delaney?
I took Henry. I actually did a Scott Fishbowl, like a mock draft, and I took Derrick Henry like in the 3rd, and I got him in the 5th. And I people just assume that Dion Lewis. First of all, Dion Lewis last year was the first time he ever played 16 games. He's like one of those guys you give a big contract to, and he gets hurt like in week 1.
Yeah.
And Derrick Henry's just built for. He can't pass block, as if you saw the Kansas City playoff game where Mariota got creamed because Henry didn't block anybody. He's a big guy. He just doesn't, pick up the blitz so well.
That is definitely not his strong.
Unfortunately, Derrick Henry really should have been in the NFL, like during the Earl Campbell or Eddie George, where you basically say, our offense is we give the ball to our running back 30 times a game until he disintegrates. But that's not the NFL. And I think the Titans coaching staff is going to be like the Patriots, where like, okay, this week, this team, it's a Derrick Henry week. This week, it's a Dion Lewis week. Like, they're going to do that kind of thing. And if you know in fantasy, that's going to help you. If you don't, then you're going to have weeks where you're really, really pissed off. But that's what fantasy football is all about, is to get us pissed off about
If you're not
things
pissed off playing fantasy football, you're doing it wrong.
Exactly. But yeah, we definitely need to, since we weren't able to, I think they were letting people kind of pick their divisions in Scott Fishbowl. I wasn't paying attention. We should have gotten the same division again. But if we're going to we should do the Yahoo League, and then we can,
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Because that was my favorite part of week 1, that one year where Josh came down and we went, and the Titans looked like crap against the Vikings, and he wore a sweater. And he just was loving
He was
life,
popular. People
and
loved
I
him.
had a great week, and I beat the crap out of you in fantasy, and then the rest of the year, your team was awesome, and until week 13, and that's the way it goes.
Yeah.
It's
Oh
kind of a
well.
rule. Like we used to have in that fantasy league we were in. I feel like it was like 6 years in a row. The number one team would always lose to the number 8 in the first round of the playoffs. That's just like you have a great year and then you have a shitty week and you're done. And that's how it goes. Because it's fantasy football. Yeah, if you don't want that dragon's milk, I can take it off your hands. No worries.
Is that all the over it or not?
That was, the Scott Fish Bowl was the last. Oh, I have to also bring this up since we almost every time I go to Nashville, I get hot chicken. And so tomorrow, Allison's doing a book event. She's doing one tonight, too. And it's at a brewery, and it's across the street from the Atlanta location of Hattie B's, which is opening tomorrow.
Oh wow!
And she asked me if I wanted to go. I was like, yeah, twist my arm. I don't think I'm going to go to Hattie B's tomorrow because I have a feeling it's going to be insane.
Probably.
Because they've been trying to open this place for like a year, and they just finally got it open. And I know it's going to be crazy.
Well.
Plus, the brewery we're going to be at has pretty good food and really good beer. Last time I was there, I had like this blackberry beer, and I had this English special bitter that was like aged in oak that was really good. That's where they had a strong beer festival. I went to a strong beer festival. This would make your liver flip. Every beer was at least 8%. Yeah.
Wow.
It was pretty strong. I don't think I'm up for beer events anymore. It's a little too much at once. There's a time and place, I guess, and I think that's in your 20s. Now it's like, oh, I got to go to work tomorrow, and it's after 9 o'clock. I can't drink anymore. What happened? We used to be contenders, Sharona.
Yeah, I mean, we're getting old, buddy.
Nuh-uh.
Uh-huh.
So your cats actually want to come in during your show?
Oh yeah, they've been at the door the whole time.
Because mine are asleep in some other room.
I think they finally gave up. I heard one just as you were saying that, though, so someone's out there.
I mean, that's one of those awe moments is like looking back at older shows and then seeing the cats that aren't here anymore and going, oh, man.
I know. Or the doggies. Libby was... Okay, now wait. I'm going to have to look up...
On your Sports by Sharona site, you talk about you are a lawyer currently and you have a Libby is on there.
Oh, I need to change that.
That's like, those bios. Yeah. Yeah, so when's the last pick you made in the fishbowl? Because we have the same slot. We're both pick 10.
I probably am up to the last, Jamison Crowder.
Yeah, you're definitely ahead because I made my 803 pick like right before the show. Jarvis Landry, baby.
It may be in my Twitter bio.
I took Delaney Walker.
Zone Blitz.
710. Zone Blitz. What, the show?
That was the name of our show. It was called the NFL Zone Blitz.
Could you name all the shows you did? Because there were Back Talk. And then you did the show with Vashti, which I don't remember what it was called. Was it just Sharona and Vashti? I don't know.
Game Over with Vashti and Sharona.
I think I snuck out of work to do that once.
Yeah. Game Over with Vashti and Sharona. My own podcast, the one that I did after that, well, sort of contemporaneously, and after that was first called Sharona Unfiltered, and then I changed it to Back Talk with Sharona, and it was that for a good while. The Extra Point, the NFL Female Show that I mentioned. If there's another one, I can't remember. Yeah.
So much history. I think I was on a show with Fantasy Taz like in 2013. That might have been the first
Huh?
one I did. And I remember they asked me about Jimmy Graham because he was going into his second year, and they talked him up. And I'm like, I don't get it. He like played 1 year in college and he caught like 17 passes. And I remember that. And then in our local draft, I took him like early, and then he was like a keeper of mine for years because he was really good. I'm like, okay, sometimes you have to listen. I mean, the only downside is just so many shows. I don't listen
Yeah.
too much anymore. I do listen to the Audible just because I still like them, and I like that Matt Wallman does his own show, and he just starts talking. No music, no crazy stuff. He just starts talking.
Yeah, there and that was one thing that sort of made it easier for me to walk away and take a break is there's such a glut of coverage out there. There's just so much content and the industry's changing. I don't know that there's that much of a market. I mean, hopefully I had good smart opinions. I don't know that there's that much of a market for that anymore. Most of it seems to be stupid.
Most of it seems to be stupid. Well, that's sometimes it's the way it goes. But damn, we've been talking an hour and a half. Look at that.
Wow.
Boom. I didn't hear from Don, so I don't know if he made it. But do you have any last thoughts on going for two? Will you ever forgive me for my auction departure?
No, I'll never forgive you for that or Bobby Rainey.
Can I buy you
And I
hot
mean
chicken to
it,
make up for it?
and it's sounding like you've decided that it's over, which is, okay.
If there ever is a show in the future, I feel like it should be another name. I don't know.
Okay.
I feel like it ended, but
Okay.
I
Well,
didn't want it to go without chatting and
something.
recapping and remembering the good times, remembering the times that maybe weren't so great. Those are good too. It's acceptable. And the fact that we've met up a few times, and even non football, we've played video games together. Although we need to find
You
a
went
game.
to sleep.
We need to find a game where on the same level. Because the games where you play for like 32 hours straight, can't do that. But Pac-Man or something like that, yeah. Burger time. There you go. Burger time for the
Okay.
win.
Well, goodbye going for two. You were fun while you lasted.
True that. Well, thanks for being on, Sharona. It's been a lot of fun, and we'll be definitely talking,
Okay.
sports or otherwise.
Thanks for having
Maybe we
me.
have a green tea together.
Okay.
I might like that. You don't
Green
know.
tea's
You
it's
don't
good.
know.
It's good stuff.
Good night, everybody.